The Devil and Tom Walker by Washington Irving. There was once a great grove a few miles from Boston in Massachusetts. According to an old story, there was a great amount of treasure buried under a large tree by Kidd the pirate. The stories add that the devil presided at the hiding of the money and took it under his guardianship.
Tom's wife was a tall termagant, fierce of temper, loud of tongue, and strong of arm. Her voice was often heard in wordy warfare with her husband.
One day that Tom Walker had been to a distant part of the neighborhood, he took what he considered a shortcut homeward through the swamp. Like most shortcuts, it was an ill-chosen route. Tom Walker reached the old fort, and he paused there a while to rest himself.
What are you doing on my grounds?
Your grounds? No more your grounds than mine. They belong to Deacon Peabody.
Deacon Peabody be damned. As I flatter myself he will be. If he does not look more towards his own sins, and less to those of his neighbors. Look yonder and see how Deacon Peabody is faring. He is just ready for burning. You see, I'm likely to have a good stock of firewood for winter.
Timber.
The right of a prior claim. This woodland belonged to me long before foot upon this soil.
And pray, who are you, if I may be so bold?
Oh, I go by various names. I am the wild huntsman in some countries, the black miner in others. In this neighborhood, I am known by the name of the Black Woodsman.
The upshot of all is that, if I mistake not, you are he commonly called Old Starch.
They had a long and earnest conversation together as Tom returned homeward. The black man told him of great sums of money buried by Kidd the pirate under the oak trees on the high ridge, not far from the morass. All these were under his command and protected by his power, so that none could find him as they propitiated his favor. These he offered to place within Tom's reach, having conceived an especial kindness for him, but they had only certain conditions.
Tom was not prone to let his wife into his confidence, but as this was an uneasy secret, he willingly shared it with her. All her avarice was awakened at the mention of hidden gold, and she urged her husband to comply with the black man's terms and secure what would make them wealthy for life. However, Tom might have felt disposed to sell himself to the devil. He was determined not to do so to oblige to his wife. So he flatly refused, out of the mere spirit of contradiction.
No!
Do it!
No!
Do it!
No!
Many and bitter were the quarrels they had on the subject, but the more she talked, the more resolute was Tom not to be damned to please her.
At length she was determined to drive her bargain to her own account, and if she succeeded, keep all the gain to herself. She set off for the old Indian fort towards the close of a summer's day. She pleaded with the devil for many hours, but he would have nothing of it, and sent her home.
When she came back, she was reserved and sullen in her replies. She spoke something of a black man, whom she had met about twilight, hewing at the root of a tall tree. He was sulky, however, and would not come to terms. She was to go again with a proprietary offering, but what it was, she forbore to say. The next evening, she set off again for the swamp, with her apron heavily laden. She had carried off in her apron the silver teapot and spoons, and every portable article of value.
In short, she was never heard from again.
Tom Walker grew so anxious about the fate of his wife and his property that he set out at length to seek them both at the Indian fort, but she was nowhere to be heard. He looked up and beheld a bundle tied in a check apron hanging in the branches of the tree, with the great vulture perched hard by as if keeping watch upon it. He leaped with joy, for he recognized his wife's apron and supposed it to contain household valuables. Tom seized the checked apron, but, woeful sight, found nothing but a heart and liver tied up inside it.
Tom was prepared to agree to anything rather than gain the promised treasure. He met the black man one evening in his usual woodman's dress, sauntering along the swamp humming a tune. He affected to receive Tom's advances with great indifference, made brief replies, and went on humming his tune. They began to haggle on terms which the former was the pirate's treasure. There was one condition which need not be mentioned, being generally understood in all cases where the devil grants favors. But there were others about which less important. He was inflexibly obstinate. He insisted that the money found through his means should be employed in his service. He proposed, therefore, that Tom should employ it in the black traffic, that is to say, that he should fit out a slave ship. This, however, Tom absolutely refused. He was bad enough in all conscience, but the devil himself could not tempt him to turn into a slave trader.
Shall open a broker's shop in Boston next month.
I'll do it tomorrow if you wish.
You shall lend money at 2% a month.
Egad, I'll charge 4.
You shall extort bonds, foreclose mortgages, drive the merchants to bankruptcy.
Oh,
I'll
devil.
drive them to the devil.
You are the broker for my money. When will you want the rhino?
This very night.
Here we see Tom Walker seated behind his desk in a counting house in Boston. At this propitious time of public distress, Tom Walker set up as a broker in Boston. His door was soon thronged with customers. The needy and adventurous, the gambling speculator, the dreaming land jobber, the thriftless tradesman, the merchant with cracked credit. In short, everyone was driven to raise money by desperate means and desperate sacrifices, hurried to Tom Walker.
As Tom waxed old, however, he grew thoughtful. Having secured the good things of this world, he began to feel anxious about those of the next. He thought with regret of the bargain he had made with his black friend, and set his wits to work to cheat out of the conditions. He became, therefore, all of a sudden, a violent churchgoer. He prayed loudly and strenuously, as if heaven were to be taken by force of lungs. In a word, Tom's zeal became as notorious as his riches.
One hot summer afternoon in the dog days, just as a terrible black thunder gust was coming up, Tom sat in his counting house in his white linen cap and India silk morning gown. He was on the point of foreclosing a mortgage by which he would complete the ruin of an unlucky land speculator for whom he had professed the greatest friendship. The poor land jobber begged him to grant a few months' indulgence. Tom had grown testy and irritated and refused another delay.
Family will be ruined and brought upon the parish.
Charity begins at home. I must take care of myself in these hard times.
You had made so much money out of me.
The devil take me if I have made a farthing.
Tom Walker set up a broker in Boston. Tom Walker set up as a broker in Boston. His door was soon thronged by customers. The needy and adventurous, the gambling speculator, the dreaming land jobber,